Okay, first of all, don't hate me for doing this, but I really think that he went too hard on this movie. So let's get into it.
If I was asked to put together a list of movies that totally didn't need sequels, I think it's fair to say that Gladiator would have to be pretty near the top. It was a great movie back in the day, from a director who was still at the top of his game, showcasing a superb performance from Russell Crowe and telling a complete, dramatically satisfying story with a poignant ending. So I have to admit, I went into Gladiator II almost a quarter of a century later, feeling kind of confused about why this movie even existed.
It's kind of like developed that niche of like, why does this sequel even existed? Yada yada. Like it was a good movie. It wasn't like an okay movie. It was a good movie. It was a good sequel. They left it on a cliffhanger for a reason, and they did not do a bad job. Honestly, I went to go watch the movie myself on a date because we rarely get to go out. It was a good movie. And I remember exactly how it left off. It wasn't that like, oh man, why does this get a sequel? It was like finally something refreshing, something that's not about like women empowerment. It's just a good old Rome tale. Like it's just a standard. It was a good in general movie. That's he's gonna be going too harsh on this one, 100%.
And well, I came out feeling pretty much the same way. Gladiator II is a movie that feels as much of a loose remake as a sequel, going over the same narrative ground and recycling all the major plot points and characters from the original, only dumber and slower this time around. And
it's like the standard for all sequels, like movies 1, 2, and 3, like Aliens 2 or whatever, and then you have Alien versus Predator. It's not supposed to be canonically in the Aliens franchise to begin with, but they're kind of slower and dumber, and you can even go back as far as Ridley, and in the second movie she's not hitting as hard as in the first movie. Like it's the same thing. Like it's kind of old at this point. Again, it's a good movie.
The result is a clunky, meandering kind of film that's actually shorter than the original but feels longer somehow, bloated with far too
Honestly, it was not clunky. It was very well put together. In the history of Rome, where people were like notoriously known for backstabbing each other, this movie represented that very well, of how things can just change up on a dime.
Too many characters that aren't especially well developed or interesting, and a plot that
they developed all these characters. They took the time into introducing how they are, how they act. If you can kind of sense if they're crazy or if he's not right in mind, they did a okay job at that. Okay, you knew who exactly all the characters were. You didn't leave the film knowing like every single name, but how many films do you leave knowing the other side characters' names besides a Marvel movie? Because it is like those side characters will be a main character in their own comic strip. Does that make any sense? Like you're not going to leave this movie saying like, oh, I specifically like this and Denzel Washington that. Like no, you just know the actor, therefore you associate to their acting in this, and you're saying it's not needed. It's a movie, it's a script, it was a well-written script. You're going a little bit too hard.
That just doesn't know when to end. The movie's set 16 years after the original. Rome's now ruled over by 2 emperors, both of whom are either mad or retarded or something, and their obsession.
Hello, Rome history. Yeah, they're mad. They are mad. Yeah, that kind of tracks with Rome's history.
With military conquest means that the empire is slowly collapsing from the inside as hunger and discontent takes its.
As most of anyone who has ruled the world ever, they always collapse from the inside and out. Like it's stayed a coup for a reason. They did a coup for a reason. That's why it's a thing. They staged it. It happened. It's been notorious throughout all history. It still happens today. Look at wars that are being fought from now. They're being destroyed from the inside to the outs.
Toll on the population. Anyway, this is where we pick up with our main man Lucius, the kid from the first movie, who's living in North Africa under a new name with his hot wife. Unfortunately, it all goes wrong when Pedro Pascal and the Roman army show up to spoil the fun, and before you can say it.
And in the movie, I know he kind of brushes over this, he's trying to make it as quickly as possible, but in the movie, they start off the movie explaining that Rome's empire is just conquering. So this is going to happen regardless, right? When this movie takes place, it is the development of the end of that empire.
To Brute, his wife's dead, the city's fallen, and Lucius has been shipped back to Rome as a slave. That's when he runs into Denzel Washington, who takes a liking to him and trains him up to be a gladiator on the promise that he'll.
He didn't just like it wasn't. He didn't look at him and be like, you know what, I like that one. Like on the concept of owning a slave, actually that tracks. And on the concept of if you would show him proving himself,
deliver Pedro Pascal's head.
Not that brief little scene that you saw, and then the fight with the what are they, baboons? I think they're baboons. But if you just showed a little bit more of that fight with the baboons, then yeah, he does have the bigger fighting spirit out of all the people that are there. We don't get to see the other people fight, but you can just tell that he's got that leader trait, obviously, because he was basically a secondhand man to the other general that was just taken in with him as a slave. They've established that in the movie. He has leader potential and then becomes a leader in the movie. What's wrong with this?
If he wins enough matches. Meanwhile, Pascal himself is getting sick of the emperors and all their shit, so he plans to stage a coup to depose them. This all seems very familiar. Then Connie Nielsen.
Yeah, the very iconic Rome history. That's why it seems familiar. Like every story that we are gonna get, every story from the 90s to now is gonna be a remake because it's already been set. There is no new movie interpretation. Even Alien Romulus had a reference that in the past, and I enjoyed Alien Romulus. I thought it was an okay movie, and I'm like unbiased as possible. And I'll tell you if I don't like any movies that they had a strong female character lead that was so pushed, but like there have been some okay movies now that I think they're just being a little bit too harsh on. You can be harsh on Disney all you want, full throttle Disney, but Gladiator II was a good movie. I don't care what he says.
Gets involved because Lucius does the soil thing that Maximus did in the original movie, so she realizes he's actually the son she sent away into hiding 16 years ago.
In the scene where he grabs the sand, it just reminded her of the father, right? Because at that point she was still like trying to figure out like, is this my son? When he does that, it kind of triggers like where Max is in the gladiator ring doing the same thing, trying to make Rome a better place, yada yada yada. And then she goes visits him in his cell and she's like, do you remember me? And she's like, I think I'm your mother. Like she says, I think I'm your mother kind of thing. It's not really confirmed how she's speaking to him at first, but then she kind of warms up to like, where did you come from? How long ago? And who sent you? I think you're my son. Like, you know what I mean? Like it did a lot of character building to get you back into that mindset of like the old gladiator, and now we're in the continuation of it. We're going full circle. What's wrong with that?
No way!
Wow, what are the odds, eh? So while all this is going on, Denzel Washington learns about Pedro Pascal's attempted coup and rats him out to the emperors, so he's forced to fight Lucius in the...
It's Rome's history, like notorious coups. Like, come on. And then what do you think is going to happen when he gets caught in the coup? He's going to be thrown in a gladiator ring. It's like, it's common sense.
Arena. Now, you might think that would be a logical place to end the movie because Lucius has finally taken revenge.
Okay, logically speaking, like using your own logic, logically speaking, why would you end the movie right then and there? Even if it took 2 hours and 50 minutes to get to that point, why would you end the movie right there? Because there's still things that need to be developed and then come to a conclusion for the movie. So that'd be a terrible ending if you wanted to end it yourself right then and there. It would make absolutely no sense. We would just go, I can go watch Hercules and I would get the same thing as like that. Oh, immediately a hero, dead. Like that would be dramatically overplayed. So no, that's a terrible way. I'm not listening to you on that. I'm sorry.
On the man who killed his wife. But nah, we've still got about half an hour to go.
Fuck.
And again, he's exaggerating like, oh, it's taken so long for this to get to this point. And it's like, no, they're giving you character development. They're developing the story they're trying to tell you. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Yeah, it took 2 hours and I don't even know how many minutes. It didn't even feel like that to me when I went to go watch it. I was just invested in the non-woke Disney trash that I was like, oh my God, like I'm actually experiencing a new movie and it's not bad. I don't know what else to say. It was not a bad movie.
The Roman people are getting a bit pissed off with all this nonsense and start fiery but mostly peaceful protests all around the city, and Denzel Washington manages to play the...
We're not peaceful protesting. We're not peaceful. There was no protesting at all. There was just a lot of yelling and a lot of booing to the emperors. Like the whole point of the gladiator ring is like to have the crowd on your side. When the crowd started booing the emperors themselves, that was not it was not protesting. It was just like the crowd letting the emperors know like this is wrong. This is not what Rome is. This is not what the gladiator ring is for. You know, like in the first movie.
Two retarded emperors off against each other so he can take power for himself. But wouldn't you know it, Lucius and the gladiators escape and go on a rampage just as Pedro Pascal's armies show up, because I guess they're willing to fight and die for a man that they've never met, don't even know exists, and only have an old ring as proof.
Again, you're twisting the story into something completely completely not told by the movie itself. The movie itself is explaining that, hey, this is a good leader. Rome is in a bad place. And if you mention that, if you go over the details in that, you could, the movie would tell you that, hey, the emperors are doing like these terrible things. People are living in poverty. People are scared. They don't have hope. They want new Rome, which is why they wanted to stage the coup. Like, it's explained in the entire movie. How you're explaining it is pretty bad. And again, I never thought I'd be doing this, but hey, you're not safe either. You need to explain to the audience that people that don't watch the movie, you have to explain to them that the movie talked about who, what, when, where, why, and they gave you all these answers, but you're not mentioning the answers at all.
That he says what he means. Oh yeah, and Connie Nielsen gets shot in the chest with an arrow by Denzel Washington because, evil, I guess.
Again, nonchalantly not even telling the story how it happened in the movie. The mother that was a part of the coup, her punishment was to watch the general die in battle, which is the clip he showed earlier. This clip right here, where he's fighting, what is that, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 4 or 5 of his own army. He kills all of them. Well, spoilers alert. He kills all of them, and then he gets put up against the son. Don't even remember his name. After he fights the son, he dies due to arrows being shot in him by the guards, and that was the emotional, dramatic ending. And then we cut to the test of the mother. So you left all the details out, and I know you're trying to like not spoil it, but I'm gonna tell it how it is. I'm gonna put spoilers in parentheses or whatever on the title, so click it if you dare. But tell it how the story happened, because you're missing a lot of important details and you're just being disingenuous to a good movie. Like, it isn't like you to do that, but maybe I'm discovering something new.
Then there's a big standoff with the two armies outside the city, and Lucius and Denzel Washington have a sword fight. A flabby 70-year-old.
Okay, based on your own logic, your video should have ended at 3 minutes and 5 seconds. You described the entire movie terribly. So what is the other, 4 minutes and 30 something seconds? 20 something seconds. So yeah, that happens at the end of the movie. Let's go over the details between, because you missed so much.
Old senator versus a 28-year-old bodybuilding gladiator. Guess who wins? Then Lucius delivers a long rambling speech about saving the Roman dream.
Save the dream!
And that's it. That's the plot for Gladiator II.
And you can take that with how you told it. You can do that with any history class, and you could be speaking to a professor, and a professor will look at you in your face and be like, get out of my class, you fail. Where are the details? Who, what, when, where, why? This is very surprising coming from the critical drinker.
Really?
You know, reviewing Gladiator II is actually a pretty easy proposition because every single aspect of this film is basically an inferior copy of its predecessor. For a start, there was Maximus from the first movie, a Roman general charged with taking over the empire and reforming it into a republic by the aging emperor, only to get betrayed by his son Commodus and have his family murdered. A decent man who tried to do the right thing and got punished for it. He's got a very...
Yeah, this movie is a completely different story. This is a completely different point of view. You're talking about Maximus, who's an old general, Pedro Pascal being the general in this movie, the new general in this movie. This movie is not about Pedro Pascal, however you pronounce his name. I'm stuttering a lot. I'm gonna keep it rolling because I'm a human being. So this movie is about Maximus' son and him coming back to Rome to establish his new leadership whilst the coup is being staged and the general is being punished for the coup for another coup to happen, and then ultimately the son full circling back to his roots as a true heir to Rome, the new Rome. This story is completely different, and you're being very disingenuous to how it was told.
Powerful and understandable motivation that remains consistent throughout the movie and informs everything that he says and does. When he takes his helmet off,
the motivation in this movie was very slow to grasp due to the fact that the son he remembered everything since birth. So the son remembers everything from his father, right? From the first movie. He remembers it all. That's why he can communicate with the Romes in their own language. They're supposed to be speaking different languages, and they even mention that. In the movie, they're going to speak English, right? How realistically it would happen is that they're speaking 2 different languages, and the son is speaking their native tongue in Rome, like their natural language in Rome. And it throws Denzel Washington for a loop because he's like, where did you learn to speak this? Or how did you learn poetry on the walls in our city? And then it's kind of like revealing revealing to the audience that like, hey, he is the son. He remembers. He damn well remembers his mother, and this is his story, not Maximus's, and not Denzel Washington's, nor the general's. This is his story from beginning to end. This is the son's story of ultimately coming back and ruling Rome, which is his birthright. He is a prince of Rome.
And reveals his true identity to Commodus, you can practically feel the rage and hatred radiating from him. In Gladiator II, his arc has been split between two separate characters, Lucius and Pedro Pascal. Lucius shares the tragic.
No, not at all. Did he even brush? Not once did Pedro Pascal take the center light, other than the fact that he was a general, and that was the only reason why he was important. Pedro Pascal did not take the light at all. He was only in the light temporarily because he was introduced as a general and because you're associating him with a very big actor. This is not Pedro Pascal's story. He's not the main character. The son is.
Tragic family deaths and the desire for revenge, but it cycles through a bunch of different antagonists so that it gradually loses its meaning. First Pedro Pascal, then the retarded emperors, then finally
And he keeps saying like retarded emperors, and I have to agree on this. It's that they're mentally not like saying, would it be correct to say a retarded person is mentally insane? I don't think they're the same thing. I think retarded is one thing and mentally insane is the other. The brothers are like blood craving, war, killmongering, like they want blood, right? They're the rulers that want blood. That's why Rome isn't in the place that it wants to be, because people have lost hope because they're bloodthirsty rulers, right? Retarded is something differently. Retarded is a younger brother who's fucking cuckoo. He would be retarded. There's something literally wrong with his brain. The older brother that you see out of the two, the taller one, is more sane-ish. He's more of a like psychopath, right? Like he knows what he's doing. He's like, I don't give a fuck kind of attitude, but he's always looking for validation. The other brother, there's something literally mentally wrong with him and he's in power. And you would see that if you would explain what happened to him and that damn monkey.
Denzel Washington. He doesn't even really want to kill Pascal after a while and just kind of lets it all go. At first he hates his mother for abandoning him, but then like 5 minutes later...
Wait, go over that again?
So that it gradually loses its meaning. First Pedro Pascal, then the retarded emperors, then finally Denzel Washington. He doesn't even really want to kill Pascal after a while and just kind of lets it all go.
Please explain what happened in the movie. If you're going to generalize the movie, at least tell the audience, your audience, what is actually happening. He didn't want to kill Pedro Pascal. If I'm butchering his last name, I'm sorry. He didn't want to kill the general because the general revealed to him, the son, that he is in love with his mother and that he did not know, and that if he knew, he wouldn't have acted like the way he did. He was just on orders from the kingdom. He didn't know the son would be there. Pedro Pascal said that he regretted doing what he did, and he even honored the son by saying, you can kill me. And then the son spared him out of that kind of respect. Put some respect in my name, bro. Fill your audience in on the details.
At first he hates his mother for abandoning him, but then like 5 minutes later they're totally cool again. At first he just...
Not at all. Not at all. He has always missed his mother. He just held a grudge against her that he had to go through all that, which is fair enough. Like I said, that's a very, you can connect with that to the actors, to the movie. You can connect through that. That's a good thing. Like abandonment issues will cause someone to have a grudge against you, but it doesn't mean that people won't forgive that person over time. In this movie, it's fairly fast, but you have to think that it's going on during, as soon as he gets there to the fights that he's going through, there is a coup going on throughout all of it. So to him, he's just in the ring. Why am I here? Who, what, when, where, why? Yeah. But throughout the entirety of him, when he first lands, it's staged a coup. It's not a hard concept at all.
Buys his Rome and everything it represents, but then he'll give his life to save it with no real explanation for how and why he got there. Even his revelation scene is kind of...
Say that again? Huh?
All go. At first he hates his mother for abandoning him, but then like 5 minutes later they're totally cool again. At first he despises Rome and everything it represents, but then he'll give his life to save it with no real explanation for how and why he got there.
Because that was what Maximus was doing too. Maximus was fighting for a new type of Rome. You can say like, people that say like, oh, I don't care for the US, but I'd like to see the US change. That means they still care. They just don't like the current state of the US, right? They don't like the current state of Rome, which if you mention the details to your audience in the movie, that Rome is on a down spiral and that the people are worried, they're lacking hope. He doesn't care for that Rome. He entirely cares for his heir of throne, the new Rome that he wants to lead. That's what he cares about. That makes sense. That's logical. I don't know what you're talking about.
Even his revelation scene is kind of weird, because not only does it it happen in front of the emperors instead of Pedro Pascal, but the writing and performance is completely off kilter. Whereas Maximus was burning with quiet, barely contained rage, Lucius starts reciting some random poem while laughing hysterically, and honestly, I wasn't quite sure what—
I'm gonna let him know this. This is kind of weird, but it's a very amateur move. When actors first getting started off, I watched a lot of videos of like them beginning. The coaches will say loud is not effective, right? Just because you're loud doesn't mean you're getting the delivery that you should be getting. So maybe you should criticize the first movie for him not being able to bottle his anger as a bad delivery on that dialogue, versus nowadays with this movie, he delivered the dialogue and also got the point across without feeling like he's angry all the time. It's just as effective, if not more effective.
what I was supposed to take from that scene, but it wasn't good. And no offense to Paul Mescal here, but Russell Crowe, he ain't. Speaking of actors who don't measure up to Russell Crowe—
Speaking about how he acted and how he looked, completely irrelevant, because in the story he did his thing. It was a good movie. It was okay acting from that dude, but I'm not gonna downshot him at all. He did a good job with the choreography. He did a good job with the convincing, the anger. There are a couple scenes that I did not like, but this is the first time I've seen this man. I have no idea who he is. I'm not saying like he's got to be Pedro Pascal level, or Denzel level, but he did a good job. He did a better job than the person who was in the first Gladiator. What do you mean?
Pedro Pascal delivers the kind of solidly adequate performance you'd expect from a decent actor cast in a role that doesn't really suit him.
Brother, he's playing a general. Like what else is a general supposed to do besides be a mean brute and kill? That is a general's job. Like he even shows a soft side for the caring of the mother, which is the details that you should have been highlighting, because in Gladiator, the first movie, Maximus does the same thing towards the end of that movie. What are you talking about? It's okay to show the brute side and it's okay to show the soft side, the loving side. Both movies went over that. So it's kind of irrelevant what you're saying. You're just kind of talking at this point, but they did a good job delivering it.
The life of me, I'll never understand why he seems to be first choice for practically every project that's getting made these days, but whatever. He does—
What happens when you're a huge actor? Like, this is nonsense. It's not even about the movie, okay? Talk about what happened in the movie, not them as actors. You gotta separate the two, brother.
His best to portray a decent man torn between duty and loyalty, disillusioned with Rome's hedonistic leadership, but I don't—
And there's no confusion with Pedro Pascal's version of the general. He's not torn between anything. He has made up his mind that these two leaders are just bloodthirsty killmongers and that he himself should change it, because he has the full faith and the full loyalty of his army that he is leading into battle. That's what the coup was about, if you told your audience.
No, man, I don't really buy him as a hardened military veteran, and I didn't particularly care when he died.
A lot of military vets that you look at in the past, if you look at them nowadays and they're really scrawny and skinny, you would say the same thing. But in the heat of battle, they were probably fucking people up. They were fucking stacking bodies, and you're saying like, well, you don't look like you. That's like me telling a staff sergeant, hey, you're too skinny to be a staff sergeant, and he's got fucking 18 goddamn Purple Hearts, which is not a good thing to have, but he's done like 7 tours in Afghanistan, which is like, I'm just exaggerating here, but like, I'm trying to paint you a picture. You're too skinny to have, and he's got like 150,000 bodies stacked on him, was a scout sniper for the Marine Corps or some shit. Like, you can't just base it on how someone appearance looks, because a lot of people in the military that were in Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, fucking any war, they were scrawny. They didn't look like they, would hurt a fly, but they would probably kill the fuck out of you. So what the fuck are you talking about? Aren't you a writer?
Denzel Washington's another weird choice for this film. I mean, I love the guy, and he's one of the greatest actors of his—
Wait, isn't he scrawny as fuck? I could say the same thing about Critical Drinker. If he shaved his beard, he'd be like a fucking soccer dad that would drink Starbucks and sit in a fucking Starbucks and write his fucking YouTube videos. He probably does, but he just sits in a pub.
Generation, but he sticks out like a sore thumb in this movie with his New York accent and his modern day mannerisms. God only knows what kind of direction.
Again, they're not speaking in their native tongues because the entire movie is in English so that the audience understand. If not, you would have the Africans speaking at that time French and their native tongue, whatever the region was, with the slang and different dialect, versus the Rome speaking whatever Latin at the time, and they were speaking English. Both sides spoke English, I think. I could be wrong. I think both sides spoke English at that point. So I didn't even hear a New York accent. What are you talking about?
He was given, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't act like you're you're in a historical epic, Denzel. His motivations are vaguely defined and poorly realised, and I kept thinking he must have some cunning plan left to spring at the finale, but nope.
You know how long it took Denzel to like, from his background, because I don't want to spoil it too much. I know I've said enough, but I don't spoil it too much. From his background to where he gets in that movie, he's been working for so long, and they established that he's been working for so long to get revenge on a certain person, and you figure out at towards the end of the movie that it was a double coup all along. That's a cool twist. The audience sees it coming from a mile away, but you got to put yourself, you got to like invest yourself in the movie, put yourself in the movie. You're the son, you're coming into the city that you were born in, and you're hearing all this crazy shit, and then you're realizing that a coup is happening with the general. You see the general yourself in a gladiator ring, and then after the general dies, your mom is in the gladiator ring with you. There's another coup going on back to back. Like that would, anybody would be in fight or flight hearing that. That's like the US is going in a coup and something happened to the president. Okay, don't want to say it like that because I don't want YouTube to get me. But for an example, like, oh, a leader was being threatened, kind of like Trump was when he got fucking nearly assassinated twice, right? Twice. And then at the same time, oh, the coup to overthrow the Pentagon, we would all freak out. So yeah, I kind of believe when they state that two coups are happening, like it's something crazy, it's insane. Like what are you asking for? Explosions during the Roman Empire, which took place I don't know how long ago. What more do you want? It's literally about swords and armies, like, and bow and arrows. What more do you want?
He literally challenges a man half his age to a sword fight and acts surprised when he loses. What a waste of an awesome actor. But you know who is
Denzel, at the beginning of that fight, Denzel actually was fighting dirty, and Denzel had the upper hand on him until it came to a certain point in the water where he just stupidly does something repeatedly and then stands still. So no, Denzel would 100% took that fight had it not been for main character syndrome. Let's say that.
Isn't awesome? The two retarded emperors who deliver some of the most ridiculous overacting I've ever seen in a mainstream movie. I mean, how the hell did they even get away with this? I'm especially disappointed in Joseph Quinn, who was superb as Eddie in Stranger Things, but he's completely out of his depth here. But even
agree to disagree. I think he did a phenomenal job with capturing the insane, bloodthirsty leader. Like he encapsulates just chaos. Like it's perfect. How he is, how he acts. He has captured chaos perfectly, and he is, I guess, performing accordingly to how an insane emperor would act. He's just crazy with power, crazy with rage. He wants all the sex. He wants all the boys, all the girls, no matter what. He wants to put his tongue in everything. He wants to taste everything. Like he's deranged. They did a good job of portraying that in the movie. So you're being a little disingenuous about how the character development for those two went. And it's kind of sad and it's pissed me off. It really is, because you're the critical drinker, dude. You're supposed to be better and do better. This is annoying.
Even the best actors in the world couldn't make these two characters believable because they're so comically sadistic and evil for the sake of being evil that they feel more like cartoon characters.
It's not comically. They encapsulated it perfectly. You have to think that everyone is trying to be civilized, and like even the gladiators, right? They're not over here screaming like, oh, I want to get out of here. They're just kind of like, be killed for freedom. And they don't even show the other groups that are going after them, because there are other groups going after them. It's gladiators, dude. It's the Colosseum ring. Like it's going back to back to back to back. This group, that group, that group. I don't think they even show any other fights in the movie, but you can see the other groups ready to go. So what are you talking about?
Commodus from the first movie was actually a pretty great antagonist with consistent values and motivation that informed everything he did. He was arrogant and dismissive.
By the way, this movie did not get any good reputation from its the way it was shot. It got good reputation because of the choreography in it and because of real life applications of them not using like stuntmen. They did the choreography, like everything was shot raw. Like that's why I got a good rep. It didn't get a good rep for its good story. I'm sorry. It was there. I watched it. It's not what he's making it out to be, because when this movie came out, it wasn't like #1 movie in the United States or #1 movie in the world or anything. There was no such thing as that. It was just a movie to go watch in a weekend or some shit. It was just a standard movie around this time. Like honestly, he's hyping it up way too much. He's just giving the old suckaroo on that what do you say, peak of this producer's time for the director. Like shut up, dude. What's that director doing nowadays, I wonder?
Submissive, but also insecure and desperate for his father's approval, so when he was hit with the news that he would never get to become emperor, he completely snapped and murdered the man in a fit of rage and jealousy.
You're saying that him being jealous of his father, like him wanting his father's approval, is somehow better than people who are perfectly portraying crazy, bloodthirsty leaders that you're saying are acting over the top. No, they're encapsulating how chaotic they are. They're just like, more blood, more blood, more blood. Entertain me, entertain me. Get up there, monkey. Entertain me, entertain me. Like, it just gets your heart kind of racing. If you're looking at it from a different point of view, imagine going to watch a football game and the game never ends. The game is just over and over and over, and you have to live your life that way. That's this movie. That's part 2. That's what the people of Rome are feeling. God, explain it better.
See, and since Maximus was the only one who could challenge him, he was forced to have him killed too. His actions were driven by a combination of deep-seated character flaws and sheer necessity, so what he did always made sense from his perspective. These guys, on the other hand, are just goofy clowns in comparison, hysterical.
Same thing. These two, same thing. Everything made sense from their perspective because they always seek validation from the crowd that they carry. Ergo, he always sought validation from his dad. It's the same thing.
And sadistic because the script says so. And I'm sorry if I'm constantly comparing this film to the original, but when you choose to make a sequel
Yeah, exactly. Why are you trying to compare it to the original? It's a completely different story. And you're a story writer. I'm getting pissed off. You're a story writer. How can you not tell the difference between this story and the last story? It's a continuation of it. Of course, there's going to be some similarities. It's not the same story being told. It's part 2. It's Sorcerer's Stone into whatever the fuck the next year was. It's still Harry Potter. It's still Hermione. It's still Ron Weasley. It's still the whole gang, but a different year. It's been 16 years. Of course, it's going to be of the same story. Why do you do this? Why?
years later that pretty much copies its story and characters beat for beat. Well,
copies its story and characters? Yeah, as a writer, you should think that word that would come to mind is called consistency. You want your story to be consistent. It was consistently chaos. It was consistently bloodthirsty. It was consistently Rome being staged in a coup. And we're continuing the consistency of the coup picking up on this story. Make it make sense. Make it make sense.
You kind of invite those comparisons on yourself. And in this case, they're not flattering ones. Gladiator II is a movie that...
Yeah, because you're going way too hard on the movie that did a very good job on encapsulating a continuation. Was not bad. Was not a bad part 2 at all. I don't think. There's far more worse part 2s that you're over here just about. Can I even do that gesture on YouTube? I mean, I don't really care, but... yeah, he's going to do his little outro anyways. But it really pissed me off because I want to be, I guess in a sense, I wanted to be validated in how I felt if I watched this. Let's say that because I'm an honest person. I wanted to be like, that was a good movie. Hopefully he says it's a good movie. I wanted to seek that validation. Now, since I got the polar opposite, that's what the video is for. And we can agree on some things. We can disagree on others. That's the whole point of being a human being. There's nothing wrong with that. But this is a different story entirely. They encapsulate the general in a different light. Of course, the general is going to be a general. That's kind of the art of war kind of thing. It's about the son, the son losing his wife at the very beginning of the clip. And then the story continues to, hey, I'm home. I'm the Prince of Rome kind of thing. Was not a bad part 2. And that's all I'm going to say about it. And that's all this video is going to be. That I disagree with the critical drinker. And I think his take on it was a fucking L. Good day.